Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, Augusto Argandoña Fine Arts. Anytime in the course of this narrated tutorial, you can click on the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel. And if you want to learn about my virtual classes or want to see my paintings, you may do so in my website at aafinearts.com. This tutorial is about how to paint a street scene in a small town, a small village. This particular image happens to be in the town or village of Arroyo Seco in New Mexico. It's up in the mountains area, and it's a very picturesque, very quaint, small area. And it's, the buildings are kind of old, but they all have that special patina that all buildings offer. Very much, these buildings, they may be old, but they do show quite a bit of character as opposed to brand new buildings. This particular image happens to be, I believe that the photo was taken probably late morning with the sun coming from the right hand side, and could be in the afternoon, but I would be certain that it was taken in the morning, judging by the long shadows. And it has some really beautiful colors, warm greens, probably was in the early fall, and so that's what I'm gonna paint it. So without much more to talk about, let's get to the fun part of this demonstration, this tutorial, and that's the painting part. So okay, get myself situated here on my drawing board, and I'm going to start painting. I will start by painting some of the structures, the buildings first, and go proceed from that. I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start with this building. Like I said, all of these walls are in the sunlight. This will be in the shade. All of this will be in the deep shade. And this facade will be in the shade also. I would imagine this is facing north. So I'm going to use a little bit of yellow ochre to start with. And this wall will stay almost white because it's getting a lot of sunshine. But I'm going to give it just a light coat of color. And I'm going to bring a little bit more of the yellow ochre onto this wall over here. And I'm going to bring that all the way down onto this, where these plantings will be. And I'm going to bring a little bit more of that color, the yellow ochre. Like I said, this wall is in the shade. And in fact, I'm going to increase just a bit more. I'm going to use a little bit of sepia mixed there. That's better. That's the color I wanted. Yeah. In fact, I'm going to increase the value of that color because when I start adding the darker colors, this is going to be it was going to be lighter. So, and I want to increase these colors here. I'm going to put more yellow ochre here. There we go. There, like that. And now I'm going to clean my brush, and I'm going to bring some ultramarine blue by itself and cool this down. There we are. all these colors have been mixed on the paper. So, and that's why I need to increase the value of those colors, because this is going to be much, when it dries, it's going to be much lighter. So I'm going to bring it over here, and a little bit more ultramarine. There we are. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to let that dry. I may go back with a little bit more color later, but for now I'm going to let that dry. And I'm going to get a different brush, and I'm going to go ahead and start doing the rest of this building, and pick up some burnt umber and ultramarine, and come over here and do that underneath of this roof that's sticking out here. There's a flag there too, so I'm going to leave that, a little bit of that showing. There we are. Coming down where that flag will be. There. And while I have that color there, I'm going to bring in some burnt sienna and warm this up a little bit. There, that's better. There. Okay. Now go back to my flat brush, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of cerulean blue, not much, and put a little bit of that color over here. Not much. Maybe a little bit of manganese blue here too. There, that's better. There, like that. And immediately after that, I'm going to bring in some burnt sienna and some burnt umber for the rusty part of this roof. Like that, with almost a dry brush effect. There we are. I'm also going to bring in some more burnt umber and come over here and give that effect of the rusty roof. Okay, like that. Let that dry. I'm going to pick up a little bit more of the burnt umber. I'm going to add some brown matter to it, and do the partitions of the corrugated sheet metal here. A little bit more of the rusty color. There we are. There, like that. I'm going to pick up some sepia with that brown matter, and come over here and give it a little bit of a dark area there. I can see that I need to darken this area too. There. And I'm going to add a few lines over here, darker lines. There, that's it. Now I can see that as this is drying, I can see that I'm going to need to go to increase the value of that color. So I'm going to bring in a little bit more of the yellow ochre. There we are. There. Okay, now a little bit like that. Um, Well, that's drying. I'm gonna bring some burnt sienna by itself with a little bit of rosemary for this adobe-like structure that's on this side. A little bit more burnt sienna. There we are. There's that flag there. And the signs, work around those signs. Again, this wall is getting a lot of sun, so I'm gonna keep it fairly light, like that. But there's one portion that is getting, will be in the shade. So I'm gonna bring some gold, ultramarine blue and the brown matte. This area is in the shade. Yeah, like that. Okay. And while I'm at it, might as well go ahead and do that flag. So I'm gonna get some ultramarine blue, very deep, a little bit of Payne's gray, and there's the flag. Yeah. Let's get some of the red. Yeah, there's the flag. Okay. Leave that alone. Now I'll go back to the building. And on this wall, there's the door, and there's some different colors there. Some purple, brown. So I'm gonna do a little bit of that for this window and door. Like that. There's also some blue. So I'm gonna use some manganese blue. And I'm also gonna bring in some sepia. There we are. A little bit of ultramarine. Yeah. Like that. Okay. There's also a little, looks like a window over here. We'll leave it like that. And that flag, the post. Right, this is drying nicely. I'm gonna leave that alone. Now this wall is green and has some other colors in it, but primarily green. Mainly the posts. Like that. Has some varieties of other colors. Maybe it's little signs or whatever, some decorations or something like that. A little bit of red, orange, like that. use some orange, cadmium orange. Like that. All right. And there's a little bit of blue on this roof hanging area, like that. There we are. And this area is pretty deep, burnt umber. This roof, there's a sign, and then the wall here on this. Yeah, like that. There's some plantings over here. I'm gonna leave those alone for now. And I'm gonna bring in some ultramarine into that. A little bit of brown matter too. Like that. And some sepia. Make this really dark. It's in the shade. You believe a few areas that are a little lighter. Irregular roof line there like that. And then the inside of those openings will be dark too. There's some plantings in front there too, so I'm gonna do that with a little bit more sepia, darken this area. Like that. Okay. And I'm gonna pick up some of the color over here. Like that, there we are. Good. I'm gonna change brushes, and there's a sign over here, so I'm gonna pick up color from that area to do this sign. There. All right. And while I'm at it, I'm gonna pick up some color on this posts also to show sunlight hitting them. There. Now that's better. All right. While I have those colors there, I'm going to come over here and do this roof too. There, like that. There. Okay. Now, while I have this little small brush with me, pick up some blue, some manganese blue, and do this roof. There we are. A little darker color. There, like that. Right, there's some signs, and then in front of that building, there's some aqua colors. Something like that. Has some yellow also. So I'm gonna get some orange. Rather, There we are. Something like that. And there's some signage throughout this area. We can do those like that. There's another sign over here that's in the shade. Yeah, like that. There's a big one over here. Yeah. There's an oval one over here. And the rest is different colors. I'll bring some of the other colors that I have in my palette. And add some of those colors here. And here. Like that. And there's a little bit of kind of a lighter bluish, creamy color over here in this sign with some letters. There. We'll take care of those later. Same thing here. That sign, take care of that later too. But this is dry now, so I'm going to darken that area. Need some sepia. There we are. That's the value I wanted, but darker there, cool, warmer over here. And I'm gonna bring in some ultramarine and cool this down a little bit, this edge. There we are, there. All right, that's what I wanted to show. Okay, so now, before I go any further, I am going to give that flag a little bit more red. There we are, there. And we'll start with the background. I have enough of these areas over here, some of the colors and the values over here. I'm going to tighten up this opening. There we are, like that. Same thing with this, I'm going to tighten up a little bit. Like that. I'm going to let that alone. I'm going to add a little bit of water over here for some of that vegetation. Get some soft colors. Get some raw umber. Like that. And I'm going to clean my brush and I'm going to bring some cerulean blue in some of these areas. Some of those colors for the vegetation. Clean my brush again, bring a little bit of aureolin yellow. There we are, there, like that. While I have those colors, I'm going to bring some of those colors over here. There's some of the other vegetation that's up in front of this building. Bring some raw sienna into that. There, like that. And the same thing over here. But over here, what I'm going to do, so there's some stones here too. I'm going to leave those stones kind of white. And I'm going to put some water over here. Like that. And bring some of the colors, the vegetation. Skipping those stones. Now I'm going to bring in some, a little bit of cerulean blue into some of these areas. The colors are kind of very subtle, very nice colors. They're not like here in Florida where the colors are very bright with tropical lights. So I'm going to use some more cerulean blue, this time with a little bit more of raw amber. Give a little bit of variety to some of the greenery over here. Skip those tones. There's also, I'm going to bring in some brown matter, some of the reddish vegetation that's over here in front of this stone. There's some of that over here too, like that. Okay, now I'm going to change, and almost with a dry brush, I'm going to use some undersea green and a little bit of raw sienna, and start darkening some of these areas, a little bit more of the undersea green. Accent those tones. Like that. A little bit more detail into this vegetation. There we are. That's that. There's that stone. That's in the sun. Bring a little bit more of cerulean blue. Some of these areas. There, like that. Okay, I'm gonna leave that alone. Maybe darken some of these areas over here. Like that. All right. So now, well, what I will do here is I'm going to add some water. There's a lot of beautiful trees in the distance behind these buildings. So I'm gonna bring in some water over here. Like that. Missing that lamp. Come over here. Like that. And immediately after that, I'm going to bring in some very strong raw sienna. Kind of soft into the distance, but make a really strong raw sienna here. Some of this look like evergreens, I think. I don't know that they are not evergreens. There's some type of other tree, maybe aspens, perhaps, something like that. A little bit more of the raw sienna. Like that. Leave some areas white here in between these signs. Other areas I'm going to increase the color like that. And right away I'm going to bring in a little bit of burnt umber while this is still wet. and bring in some undersea green, quite a bit of undersea green mixed with the raw sienna. I come over here and start doing some of those colors. Like that. But more of the undersea green, more raw sienna. Come over here. Like that. And there's beautiful colors here. More of the raw sienna over here. I mean the undersea green. Raw sienna. I'm going to bring in some of the burnt umber also. Quite a bit of the burnt umber with the undersea green. To this area, it'll be a little darker. All on that wet paper. Those signs. We get a little bit more raw sienna there. Get a little bit of white for some of the tree trunks. A little bit more of the burnt umber with the undersea green. This time I'm going to bring in some Payne's gray, fairly dark, for all the shadow area. There's some of those tree trunks there. There we are. Bring some sepia into that. The undersea green. And there's some of the darker colors over here for the vegetation. Like that. Something over here. There, like that. Some more Payne's gray. Make this a lot darker. Especially around this sign. This brush is ideally suited for that. I'm going to bring some sepia there too and get all this area much darker. There we are. Leave a little bit of those specks of white showing the sunlight filtering through that area. Same thing over here. There's some like that. Okay, I'll let that dry. When that's drying, I'm going to bring some water over here, kind of blend it into this other color for the mountain in the distance. A little bit of that over here too, water. And there's a whipping willow, large whipping willow here. So I'm going to leave those areas dry, but I'm going to combine all of this into this area like that. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to use a little bit of aureolin yellow with raw sienna and cerulean blue. For this some type of tree in the distance over here, I'm going to kind of blend it into that water. And there's a chimney there too, so I'm going to leave that alone. Okay, like that. A little bit more raw sienna. Get those colors there like that. There. Now, in the distance, while that's drying, or while it's still wet, rather, I'm going to bring in some cobalt blue. Like I said, I'm missing that weeping willow. More cobalt blue here. Kind of blend it right into these warm colors. There, like that. And immediately after that, I'm gonna bring in I'm gonna bring in some permanent sub green with ultramarine blue into that greenery on that mountain in the distance. A little bit of Payne's gray and some undersea green also. A little dark, like that. Kind of get the detail of those trees that are in the foreground. Like that. And the sea green and Payne's gray, much darker. Same thing over here. And come down to where this weeping willow will be. That mountain there. I'm going to bring a little bit more of the Payne's gray. It's a little bit of burnt umber for some of the brownish tones of the mountain. Like that. A little bit more ultramarine blue. Especially over here, much darker, with vertical strokes. And I'm going to start leaving some of that there like that. Darken this area, much darker, ultramarine and undersea green. There. Okay. Now I'm going to mix some raw sienna with aureole in yellow. A little bit more water in my palette, in my brush. I'm going to use, I'm going to add a little bit of, I think I'm going to start with cobalt blue into that mixture. Yep, that looks good. And come over here and do that weeping willow. And mix those colors into that dark area, softening the edges, like that. There we are. Some more aureole in yellow, more raw sienna, and more cobalt blue. And they have these colors are very strong too. Blend it like that, kind of soften those edges. Come over here. Like that, there we are. And blend it right into this warmer raw sienna. Like that. And right down to over here. Kind of blocking that building in the front. While that is beginning to dry, I'm gonna get more of the raw sienna and more of the cobalt blue. Maybe some cerulean blue instead. Yeah, that would be better. And start darkening some of these areas a little bit more. Okay, I'm also gonna use the same colors, raw sienna, very strong now, cerulean blue, and Payne's gray. And for the shadow side of this greenery. There we are, like that. And get the shape of that whipping willow. Like that. Bring some Payne's gray into that mixture and get the really dark areas over here. Like that. Get some burnt umber and come back here, and this is gonna be really dark. I'm gonna block this sign. There we are. That area will be dark. I'm gonna bring some sepia there too. Sepia with the dark green. Here we go. All of this will be really dark. And get some of this lighter colors showing through. There we go. Some a little bit more sepia, and some of these darker areas blocking this building, leaving some of the original color, the background. Blocking that building. Showing some of the color in the background through the darker areas here. Some of the whipping willow, they're like that, overlapping that roof. And over here too, so. There we are. And I'm gonna bring in a little bit more sepia with on the sea green into this area, darken these areas a little bit more. This vegetation, and like that. There we are. Put some tree trunks or whatever. Same thing over here. Hold on. There we go. Now, we get some water in my brush and soften this area. like that. I'm gonna bring a little bit more of the raw sienna and cerulean blue into this area here. There we are. Okay. And then now I'm gonna do this building and all the darker areas in here. But before I do that, I'm going to do the road. I'm gonna add a little bit of water here. Change brushes to a larger brush. I'm going to use a little bit of probably ultramarine blue with a little bit of brown matter. Of the pavement here. A little bit more ultramarine, a little bit of more brown matter. Like that. Okay, and in my brush, I'm also going to pick up a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of the brown matter, not too much, it's kind of light for some of the sandy type of ground over here by the edge of this pavement. Kind of blended it right into the pavement, leave some whites here and there. Like that. Okay, now I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to bring in a little bit more of the brown matter and the ultramarine blue and these darker areas over here. Kind of blend it right into that pavement. There, like that. I'm going to let that dry. While that's drying, I'm going to pick up some burnt umber and a little bit of brown matter and do this building here. This is going to be dark also, but for now there's a window there, so I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to do these things darker. So there's that sign. I'm going to bring it right into the road there. A little bit more brown matter and burnt umber. And these buildings over here that are in the shade. A little bit of mineral violet. A little sign there. Also going to bring in some sepia with those colors and get some of the really dark areas over here. There's some dark areas over here too. This building is in the shade, so we'll darken this. There's that window there. I'll visit that later. We'll do that. And some cobalt blue. But this building is over here. Kind of cool them down. Oval sign. everything being in the shade here, it's very hard to distinguish what's going on. So I'm gonna just use quite a bit of cobalt blue and sepia and darken all of this like that. Let's get some burnt umber also for some of the warmer items. Like that. Clean my brush, bring more cobalt blue, cool this down, this area down. It's hard to distinguish what's going on here, but so that's what the reason for all these dark colors. And now I'm gonna go ahead and do this sign as a border. Okay, like that. That's this sign also. And this sign. Some whites here and there. There's some signs over here with darker areas. And that window. Pretty dark. All of these areas are pretty dark. All of this is in the shade. That. Like that there. Okay, now I'm going to get my flat brush and pick up some really strong brown matter and cobalt blue. And look at the shadows coming out of the right hand side. Like that. We'll change that to ultramarine. And we'll continue with these shadows. Paper's kind of wet, that's why it's undulating there. All these shadows there like that. I'm going to bring this over here, a little bit more of the blue, bring the shadows all the way down. Should have waited for the paper to dry, but that's all right. That's good. And connect those shadows right into that wall. There, like that. Okay. Now I'm gonna clean my brush, bring the ultramarine blue with brown matter, and do some of the shadows over here too. Not quite as dark. A few areas over here too, like that. There we are. Do the shadow side of some of these rocks. Like that. And bring some burnt umber by itself and do a little bit of this ground area. Give it a little bit of texture. Right by this building, give it a little bit of a base, like that. And there's some bush here too, so I'm gonna get some on the sea green and this bush. And pick up some sepia and give it a little bit of a little branches or trunks or whatever you like that there. Now I'm going to pick up some sepia, light sepia, come over here and do this things for this roof. There, like that. And there's a little window over here. Yeah. And there's some boards, kind of rough boards here. Like that. And that's pretty much it for that building. This sign, there's some signs, some lettering over here like that. This sign has another oval inside and some of the letters. I have the little board there. This has a line and supports for that sign. There's a little shadow area there. There we are. I'm going to tone down this sign a little bit. Like that, there we are. And this is dry, so we'll come over here and do this post and this light. Like that. The painting is pretty much done. I'm gonna add some darker areas here for the doors and some of the items. Right in front. Lastly, I'm going to take my brush, get some water, and I'm going to soften these edges. Blend them right into that greenery in the distance. There, like that. Okay. Do the same thing over here, soften some edges, some areas, pick up some highlights. There, like that. And lastly, do this little chimney. There. A little darker Okay, and this painting is pretty much done. But I think I'm gonna pick up some dry sepia and do some post or something like that over here, like that. Something over here. Like that there. Lighten up some of these areas a little bit. Picking up color, lifting color. And like that. I'll use my flat brush for that. Pick up some color here. There we are, that's what I wanted to do. Okay. So now I'm gonna remove this tape and bring a dartboard, and I'll show you what this looks like. The little village of ARROYO SECO in New Mexico. Here comes the dartboard. Paper is still kind of damp here. I will minimize it a little bit. And there it is. Morning light at Arroyo Seco, New Mexico. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration, this tutorial. Thank you for watching. And please visit my website at aafinearts.com, where you will see information about my virtual classes and a selection of my paintings and prints. Until next time.